Thank you. And at the outset, I should thank the Sri Lanka Institute of Agriculture for inviting me to give my insights on the potentials of organic and inorganic fertilizers in providing plant nutrients for agricultural systems in Sri Lanka. And also, I know that this is a webinar for OPA, and where diverse group of professionals are listening and taking part. So I think from a agricultural point of view, how I see these potentials in organic and inorganic fertilizers for providing plant nutrients is important. Let me start my presentation by uh, this policy document. In the Vistas of Prosperity, our national policy document in chapter 5, page 39, it mentions we are going to do a revolution in use of fertilizer. And at the same time, in same paragraphs, it says that we are going to produce food with no contamination, with harmful chemicals. So when we see something in under the paragraph of revolution to use in fertilizer, and also food with no contamination from harmful chemicals, one would definitely make a link that the fertilizers are harmful chemicals. In fact, agrochemicals, when we talk, there are two aspects of it. It is one is pesticide and the other one is chemical fertilizers. So pesticides, ladies and gentlemen, are meant to kill somebody. Pardon me if I use a harsh word in here, but it is meant to damage insects, pathogens, plants. That is how the pesticides are. But for chemical fertilizers, they are meant to nurture the plant, to provide nutrition to the plant, to provide plant nutrients. So that is how chemical fertilizers are sort of evolved in the nature, in this process. So when we look at the chemical fertilizers that we use in agriculture systems today, these are the most common chemical fertilizers: urea, ammonium sulfate, TSP, MOP, and then diammonium phosphate and ERP. And you can see the chemical formula that is given, and they are very simple chemical formulae, and they will provide different forms of plant nutrients for plants, and the rest of the uh, 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 stuff are kind of will be very much less toxic to the environment. Having said that, chemical fertilizers, of course, can contain some impurities. For example, if you take urea manufacturing process, you have biurate, which is a phytotoxic, and therefore we need to reduce that level to minimize the crop damage. And also, because of this, four fertilizers are coming from or extracted from minerals in the earth. They are naturally containing contaminations from heavy metals: cadmium, arsenic, chromium, and lead. And because of that, SLS standards have very stringent regulations, very stringent criteria to regulate chemical fertilizers that has been imported to Sri Lanka, and they have very stringent standards that has been put forward. And if you compare with the other countries, and you would easily recognize that these are very stringent regulations. I mean, these levels are very difficult to meet with, and so that the fertilizers imported, if correctly done, then we should be safe. And if we go to the organic fertilizers, because this is the topic these days, and recently Sri Lanka Standards Institute come up with some regulations and some standards where they have also uh, used toxic elements, their levels, as well as there are so many other things included in these to protect the our environment and the people. They should be free from living organisms, because to protect our biodiversity and also the people. And then there shouldn't be any antibiotic residues. there shouldn't be any organic pollutants, there shouldn't be any microplastics, and there shouldn't be any adulterations from nitrogenous residues. With that, one can make a small calculation based on the quantities of fertilizers that we are going to use in Sri Lanka. And if I do this calculation, you will see the amount of trace metals or the toxic elements that we are going to add into our agricultural soils. Right? If we import this quality fertilizers from this quality organic fertilizers and apply them for one season for the entire country, and if we are going to provide these plant nutrients from chemical fertilizers with this quality, and you will see that what we are going to apply for NPK fertilizers for about 20-30 years will be applied within one season. So this is the one danger of importing chemical organic fertilizers to Sri Lanka and dumping it. So our organic fertilizers here, are they safe? Here are some information for your information. I have deleted some names at the bottom. These are from Pradesh Sabhas and municipal councils. And these are the lead and chromium values that has been reported in samples randomly selected. So even these organic fertilizers are not safe. They contain quite a lot of lead and chromium in it. And if we are to use small quantities of them, then we will have to use these low quality, I would say in plant nutrient terms, low quality organics in our systems in very large quantities. And therefore, the chances of loading heavy metals into our agricultural soils over the period of time is going to be huge. That I think we need to keep in mind when we sort of analyzing how we're going to provide plant nutrients for agricultural crops. Are we using chemical fertilizers excessively? That is the other question that I see in the media often says that we are using lots of chemical fertilizers. Now, this is from Food and Agriculture Organization statistics in 2021. And these are some developed countries, how much they are using. You can see 1,400 kilograms per hectare. Right? The lowest I recorded here is the Australia being animal husbandry based country, and they also considered as agricultural land. So that is why the per hectare fertilizer usage is low. When it comes to Asian countries, look at this scale is different now. Here from 0 to 1,400. Here we are ranging from 0 to 600. And this black line is Sri Lanka. So are we using chemical fertilizers as a country in excess? I think we are in parallel with India, Thailand, and there are certain countries like Bangladesh and Vietnam in excess. Not in excess, I mean, they are applying more than we have. And at the same time, I have seen that people are arguing that our national productivity is low, even though we apply high fertilizers. So this is going to be the case. The data does not suggest that. So ladies and gentlemen, the topic today that I have to talk is on how we going to manage plant nutrition with organic or inorganic fertilizers. So in order to give you a better understanding on this topic, I thought I would better share some of the basic principles of plant nutrition so that you will easily understand why I'm saying something in this particular aspect. Right? So out of 18 essential elements without which plant cannot grow, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium are the most limiting elements in Sri Lankan soils. Right? And therefore, we need to provide them, and that is called soil fertility. So soil fertility definition says the capacity of the soil on nutrients in required quantities, forms, and ratios. So these three words are very important in plant nutrition, and I highlight the word ratios here because I'm going to use that word later. The ratios of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, that has to be balanced, right? When it comes to forms, nitrate, ammonia or nitrate, or potassium plus ion, or H2PO4 ion, that is the form that plant absorb nutrients. And when it comes to plant root surface, plant doesn't care whether it comes from a chemical fertilizer or an organic fertilizer, it will take up these forms. So we need to provide correct forms for plants to uptake. Right? Then there's another principle or law that all this plant growth or plant nutrition is governed by, which is called Liebig's. He's a German scientist, chemist, Liebig law of minimum, which says even if you provide all other conditions adequately, if one is missing, one growth factor is missing, the growth or the yield is going to be limited by that factor. And it has been shown years and years and years after in plant nutrition research. Right? And therefore, in order to manage these plant nutrients, all crop research institutes are going for this 4 right concept of sustainable nutrient management, where we need to select the right source, right rate, right time, and right place. And these are the type of nutrient management strategy that we need to go. When you say right source, it can be chemical fertilizers, or it can be organic fertilizers, or it can be a combination of them, depending on the situation that you analyze or you grow crop with. When you look at our soil resource is highly variable, and there are so many different types of soils. And at the moment, in 2005, Senior Professor Marpa completed his analysis on classifying soils and identified 120 soil series. And this is one of the highest variability having country in the region. So we have 120 soil series. And one of the drawback in these soils is that our soil does not have enough plant nutrients because it had been weathered over millions of years, and therefore it doesn't have the capacity to hold plant nutrients together. Even if we apply as fertilizers, they will just simply flush down through the system because it has no the capacity to hold this. Why is this? Because our soils have low clay content. One reason. Clay content, we cannot do anything. But the other very important one is we don't have enough organic matter. As you can see in these 2 photographs here, most of our soils are like this. And in a very fertile soil, you have this black color, beautiful soil profile, which is related to soil organic matter. And that is why in IPNS, Integrated Plant Nutrient Management, or 4R principle, we encourage always to nurture our soil with or adequate amount of soil organic matter, so that whatever the nutrients that we apply can be held together in the soil and release when the plant requires, so that it will not pollute water bodies. And if you don't do that, then inevitability is that we will be starting to pollute our environment. And one other thing, unlike a forest ecosystem, the agricultural system's nutrient flow, plant nutrient flow, is open. That is, in a in a forest system, nutrient flow is circular and closed within the system. Whereas in the agroecosystems, you take some of the plant nutrients out as yield from away from the cropping field. And because in order to complete this circle and to sustain our environment, then we need to add at least the amount that is removed as the yield back to the field. Otherwise, the system is not going to be sustainable. So at least the nutrients removed as yield must be given back to soil as fertilizers. So with that, then I will go to our main topic. So how are we going to give plant nutrients? Traditionally we use chemical fertilizers, and chemical fertilizers, we know the solubility exactly. They are 100% soluble oftentimes, and we know exactly how much nutrients are there. And therefore, it is easy to make that ratio, optimum ratio for plant growth using this formula. But when we look at organic fertilizers, for example, the one thing is the amount of nutrients present in organic fertilizers are much lower when compared to 46% to 0.5 to 1.5. Therefore, we need to apply them in large quantities. But they are variable as well. From one batch to the next batch, depending on the source material and the conditions, the amount, the variability is high. That is one thing. The second thing is that organic fertilizers are not like straight fertilizers. It will not only provide nitrogen, it provides all these things together. So we need to apply the ratio that the organic fertilizer has, not the ratio that the plant requires in the given particular crop soil system. That is the second problem. And also the third problem is, here we know the solubility and we can calculate exactly at what time how much should be given. But here the release rates of these nutrients from this organic material depends on the soil conditions, environmental conditions, and the root soil interactions. Therefore, we need to understand how these different fertilizers are released. Different organic fertilizers release their nutrients in a given system, which is another difficult task. When it comes to a compost requirement or the organic fertilizer requirement, national requirement, you can easily calculate using a piece of paper and the amount of nutrients removed from the yield, taking that as the minimum requirement, which is not correct, I must say, which is not correct. And I can see that at the moment people are calculating like that, but which is not correct. But anyway, if we take that and to supply at least that amount, we can back calculate how much compost is required, for example, which is the now available organic fertilizer. And if I calculate that with this type of compost, 1.5% nitrogen, 0.5% phosphorus, and 1% potassium with a 50% efficiency, and I need at least for 5 crops, paddy, corn, potato, tea, and coconut, we need 18 million tons of compost. We are requiring them in very large quantities. And if you can come up with a very good quality compost with 5%, then we can reduce it up to 3.3 million tons. How much we are producing? We are producing close to 1.2 million at the moment. And so we have a humongous task to meet this requirement if we are going to use compost or solid organic fertilizer. That is one thing. The second thing, usually I talk about the balance of nutrients, ratio of correct balance of NPK ratio. Right? In order to provide nutrients, we usually balance nitrogen content of the nitrogen requirement of the crop with compost fertilizers. Now it is 100% match with these quantities. Now, since we have to apply the given ratio that the organic fertilizer comes with, now we are applying more than required phosphorus content. And you know, ladies and gentlemen, phosphorus is one of the culprit which pollutes our surface water bodies and leads to eutrophication. And that is one of the major issues in upcountry vegetable cultivating areas at the moment. And these soils, if we are going to apply this compost fertilizer, we are aggravating this problem, phosphorus accumulation and eutrophication, significantly. The other thing that I want to make, let's forget about these higher values in potassium. You can see if we apply these quantities, at least for potato crop and coconut, we are supplying only 53% of potassium and 42% of potassium for coconut. Remember the principle, Liebig's law of minimum. Plant growth, even though we supply them in adequate quantities, the plant growth and the yield is going to be limited by limited potassium content. So it is not that easy to manage a plant nutrient requirement using a compost or fertilizers that are currently available, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm going to skip that slide and I'll come, because of the time limitation, very quickly. And people want some evidence. What if we use organic fertilizers, what's going to happen to the yield? So this is one of the classic example, one of the only one long-term organic, inorganic or chemical fertilizer comparison that is in Rice Research Institute, Bathelagoda, which is now about 20 plus years. You can see this red line is only with organic fertilizers, organic manure. And then the green line is with nitrogen chemical fertilizers. And if you apply this together, then you can get a slightly higher yield as well, right? So it says that on average, about 24% of yield drop if we are going to use this organic matter in an environment like Bathelagoda. This can be varied depending on our variability in the country, in the soil resources. And similarly, I can give you enough evidence on that. And this is for using cattle manure and compost for vegetable over 4 seasons. As you can see, chemical fertilizer alone treatments and compost alone treatments, which drops a yield for about 13 to 60%. Mind you, this rate is 40 tons per hectare. So in my calculation, I was using somewhere around 5 tons per hectare to calculate the heavy metal loading. And there are similar experimental evidence available in the Department of Agriculture. And this is again another situation where cattle manure and vegetables have been used. So with this conventional type of organic fertilizers, we will not be able to get the expected yields, ladies and gentlemen. And this is another experiment that is ongoing with my postgraduate students. And it also clearly says that adding organics plus inorganic fertilizers give you a better yield. So under different cropping systems, we need to cropping and soil systems, and in a different environment, we need to find the optimum fertilizer rates to be established. So we don't know yet what are the optimum rates to get the maximum yields, and while also protecting the environment, which is a big concern at the moment. So what is the way forward, ladies and gentlemen? What I think is one of the major drawback in the current system is that providing of fertilizer subsidy for chemical fertilizers. And remember, I said our soils are very poor in organic matter, and therefore we need to force farmers to apply fertilizers, organic fertilizers. We cannot do that because these chemical fertilizers are given free to farmers, and they don't bother about improving fertilizer, soil organic carbon stocks. They just simply add chemical fertilizers. So we need to rethink this subsidy on chemical fertilizers. So organic fertilizers should be locally produced, and I am a strong believer that we should not import any organic fertilizers from other countries and dump in our clean environment with heavy metals from other countries and made available for farmer fields. And as I mentioned, the traditional organic fertilizers that we have, we cannot do this business. I made the case for inventing quality organic nutrients should be improved, and therefore for that we need to do some innovations, and for that research and innovations has to be strengthened, and liquid and granular organic fertilizers from locally available resources has to be produced, and that is, I heard that it is going to happen. And biofertilizers, biostimulants, and waste recycling has to be those research has to be strengthened. And waste is a very good source of plant nutrients, and we should be able to develop technologies so that we can isolate only plant nutrients from those waste and put them back in our agricultural fields. Waste handling is a very critical issue because it comes with some other contaminants as well. Ladies and gentlemen, if I ask you,
Professor, you have mentioned about anything about, you mentioned about the biofertilizers of peats also. You can close your session, but you can take it up in the question time. And they have perception or also some belief that biofertilizer and organic fertilizers are the same. If you can give a bit of a definition, and you can wind up your speech for the time being, and you can rejoin at the end.
So biofertilizers are different kind of fertilizers that provides plant nutrients. For example, organic fertilizers, they have nutrients in it. But biofertilizers are organisms that can convert, which are not available for plants previously. For example, we have enough nitrogen in the atmosphere, about 78%, but plant cannot utilize that. There are microorganisms who can convert that into ammonia and nitrate forms so that plant can take up. So that is the type of biofertilizer that I am talking about. And there are phosphorus available in the soil that has been sort of bound together into soil particles. We can use microorganisms to dissolve that and make them available for plants. So these type of areas of research has to be strengthened. Biostimulants are something else where it will promote plant growth by not providing nutrients, but by some other means, some hormonal activities, right?
I believe that still the biofertilizers, we have less information, or we need the more research and more information about that. Introduction of biofertilizer arbitrary might pose, I mean, it may be counterproductive, or will it be a product?
Biofertilizers, if we can come up with a effective biofertilizer, we can make use them. Only problem with biofertilizer is that they are not going to be effective each and every soil crop situations equally. Now for chemical fertilizers, if you apply, if you get it dissolved, it is going to be equally effective in all other places. But biofertilizers, it is the microorganisms that we are going to apply. That microorganism has to survive in that particular environment. If somebody comes from outside to your home or area, people will, I mean, not people, but general thing is happening is we try to expel him. Similarly, when microorganisms comes into a natural environment, artificial from another environment, it has to be compatible with that environment. We are not encouraging biofertilizers to be imported from other countries, which is a great disaster. So we never sort of encourage any living organisms to bring into the country and apply it as biofertilizers, which is at the moment, according to Plant Quarantine Act, it is prohibited to bring any organism containing thing into Sri Lanka.